Welcome back, folks. Episode 30, Get a Grip on Lighting. On today's show, we have Pierre Lafarge. Who's Pierre Lafarge? Well, he is the CEO of Sparkfund. They're the big Lux as a service company. We just changed the name again with him. So, yeah, listen to this one. He's going to describe the business model. He's going to talk a little bit about why customers might want to look at not owning their lighting systems and paying a monthly fee for them and transferring that ownership over to a company who manages it, fulfills the warranty, ensures the deliverable lumens, and so on. So listen to this one, folks. If you're interested in lumens or Lux as a service, this is the episode for you. This episode of the podcast, This episode of the podcast is brought to you by
Keystone Tech.
Go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com, baby. KeystoneTech.com. Greggy, what are we talking about with Keystone today?
So HID to LED lamps. There's a lot of fixtures out there, that outdoor fixtures primarily, that have HID lamps, whether they're metal halide, high pressure sodium, a few mercury vapor still left. But Keystone has always had a great Omni cob selection, or arc cob. They have like the 180 degree, they have the 360 degree cobs, and they have them where they can work off the ballast type A or bypass the ballast type B. And now they've come out with a generation 2 of their Omni cobs.
Okay,
and the generation 2 is a smaller, narrower cob. And that's important because a lot of these fixtures, you only have so much room to work with. They don't fit. This new cob they have is, they show an example of one that's a whole inch shorter and an inch less in diameter too, which gives you more space to fit into more fixtures and more lumens per watt too. They're getting 150 lumens per watt out of an Omni cob.
Yeah, come on, man. Keystone's the retrofit kings. Come on. Go to KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com. Now, you were talking about HPS and metal halide and mercury vapor, Greg. What if a listener out there doesn't know what the difference of those things are? What should they do?
Maybe take some training like LS1 from Nailed.
That's right, because this podcast and every podcast on the getagriponlighting.com website is brought to you by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, and they have a course there called LS1. And if you didn't know what Greg was talking about when he was talking about HPS and metal halide and mercury vapor, you can learn all about that on LS1. But without further ado, we give you Pierre Lafarge, Sparkfund, episode 30, Get a Grip on Lighting. Welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, Pierre.
Thanks. Happy to be here.
Say hi to Greg Eric.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Pierre. Excited to have you.
Pierre, tell us how Sparkfund is funded. Where does it get its capital from?
Sparkfund is a venture-backed company. We've been up and running for almost 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in September. And we have a range of institutional venture funds and some large strategic investors, including utility companies, energy companies, stuff like that.
Are you guys doing? Are you guys really adopting the LAAS model for lighting upgrades?
We are, and Sparkfund's platform is broader than just lighting. We're actually really focused on providing multi-technology, multi-location access to energy systems in the building. And we do that through a simple subscription-based offer, and we call it the Sparkfund Technology Subscription. But lumens and other pieces of lighting technology are functions that we specify and guarantee as part of those contracts.
So as far as the money and the backing that you have, do you have to go to these investors every time a project comes up, or do you have X amount that you can give out and when you run out, you're done? Or how does that model all work on your end?
Yeah, so there are two different sides of how we raise capital. The venture backing that I described is for the corporate entity. That's actually for our company and running the operations, growing the model of becoming the operating system that incumbent energy providers use to offer subscription to their customers. The project money is through capital providers, debt investors, and they give us the capital we need to own those energy systems on behalf of our customers. So they're two separate pools of capital. And the project capital we have are standing commitments to the projects.
Does the IRS let you own those assets that are affixed to real property? and then lease them or somehow finance them back? Or do you guys have trouble with the accounting side of this at all, Pierre?
No, you know, it's been an exciting journey over the last bunch of years, but we've seen a really large shift in how accounting codes interact with true service contracts. So FASB, the accounting board, standards board, actually released a whole new set of codes called Lease Topic 842. It's exciting stuff for a podcast. So the nerds at home, buckle up. But that, needless to say, yeah, everyone leans forward in their chair on that one. The accounting has really shifted and really defined a clear definition for what a true service contract is and what is a traditional lease or loan. And so our contracts do qualify under that true service accounting.
So this is the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. So from a lighting perspective, what are your clients actually paying for?
So what our clients are paying for across all our contracts, including lighting, is function. So we define their outcomes, so business outcomes that are actually going to improve their facilities. So we have customers for lighting that have success criteria like brighter parking lots or brighter lobbies, more lumens, right? Or a 10% reduction in their spend on lighting or 20% reduction. And Sparkfund's job is to bring every project that meets those success criteria and to guarantee that the systems that are installed will function exactly as specified to deliver those outcomes.
Yeah, you know,
and the cool thing about the contracts, oops, sorry.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. The cool thing
about the contracts is it's a pretty intuitive model. It's as simple as if it doesn't work, if the equipment we install doesn't work exactly as it should, you don't pay. So the minimum payment is zero on a Sparkfund subscription contract. How
many times has that happened?
It hasn't happened yet, although there are always problems, you know, at the edges of any installation. That's why this is a complex industry that has to be done carefully. And even though lighting is a stable, you know, well-known technology, there are always little tweaks and adjustments that a system goes through to become really perfect for a customer's needs. And one of the benefits of subscription is that we always, you know, alongside our partners, come back and make sure the system is operating exactly to the needs of the customer.
So just so people understand what we're talking about here, you're not financing the sale of an asset to these customers. You're literally maintaining the ownership of electrical and HVAC equipment or whatever within real property, and then charging the customer a subscription rate for its performance over time and measuring it against energy savings and so on and so forth for them.
That's right. Measuring it against their success criteria. And by doing that, we can use our purchasing power across all of our customers and partners to get a substantially lower margin for the customer. We actually can save the customer 20 or 30% compared to buying a single project directly. And that guaranteed function means that they have absolute certainty that their system is going to deliver those outcomes and work as specified.
Who decides whether or not it's 20 or 30% less? Like, how do you decide that? That sounds like marketing to me.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And obviously, and as anytime you make a statement about how much you can save a customer, it's indicating some sort of value you're trying to bring. But the cool thing about our approach is that on any given project, right, whether it's 40% or 10, right, around that number, we're hyper transparent. So we actually show the customer a buildup from the ground up of every cost of good, every margin, every piece of a project economic, so they can really understand exactly the project they're getting and exactly what cost along that chain. And that's really new in the market. And Sparkfund feels really strongly about taking that sort of hyper-transparent customer-first approach, because one of the problems with the traditional industry across energy systems has been a lack of transparency, and customers have trouble figuring out what they're actually paying for and whether they're getting a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that, you know, from a lighting perspective, and I'm coming at it looking at that section of it more, but I mean, a lot of customers have trouble knowing how much money they actually saved. So, for example, if energy cost goes up and their kilowatt hours go down over the course of a year by, say, 6%, what are the savings?
Right.
Are you guys measuring the energy savings or the savings from these projects using meters? Are you using bills? Are you assuming? What is it that you're doing?
Yeah, our platform really is not about a specific technology or technology package. It's about subscription. So the customer can subscribe to whatever bundle of technologies they feel meet those outcomes. So if they want measured and verified savings, or metering, that's absolutely something we can include on the platform. But our core guarantee is that all of the systems that are provided, including a meter or an M&V system, will work correctly.
So is Sparkfund a software company? I'm still getting my head around this a little bit.
Yeah, so are we. And any company that's 5 years into its journey, we're constantly, asking ourselves that question and others. The answer is we're a business model innovation company. We think that some of the most exciting disruptions in how customers get access to value across all of the industries that touch our lives, right, from music to movies to cars, are really moving towards subscription. And some of the disruption in that category is really about business models. So we're a business model innovation company that's enabled by a really well put together software platform. So there's software involved, but we're not a software company in the traditional sense.
So of the technologies that you offer this for, what percentage of them right now are lighting?
It started out at 90%. 2 or 3 years ago, and it's dropped all the way below 50%. We think that HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, backup generation, battery systems, critical infrastructure in the building, along with lighting, is really going to be a major part of this market.
Are you working with utilities for load shedding and stuff like that as well with those batteries, or is that backup power?
Yeah, primarily in our current portfolio, it's backup power. We are, in the future, very interested in engaging with active and passive grid services and demand response. We think that as customers subscribe to energy systems in their buildings, that they will ultimately want to optimize those assets through grid services. We think of our ability to add value to a customer across 3 functions: procure, so get access to the physical systems, right? Figure out which ones should be in the building and how to get them in, and the actual procurement. Manage, which is the service and ongoing guarantee of function, and then optimize, which are predictive maintenance, uptime monitoring, and grid services, which is what we're rolling out now.
So you said that 90% of the projects were lighting. Now it's 50%. Has the number of lighting projects, so I assume your company has grown, has
Yes.
the number of lighting projects, I hope, increased in that time, even though it's down to 50% of your business? I assume there's still a big chunk of it is lighting, or there's more lighting projects now than you had in the past. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. We've been very lucky to have a really good experience in the market, and we're now over 250 customers and many more hundreds of buildings and in 45 states. So yeah, as that balance has shifted, the number of lighting projects and number of locations at which we've done lighting has gone up very quickly.
Now, what is the most common success criteria for lighting? You talked about it could be energy savings, it could be deliverable light. What are all the criteria and then the most common that you'll
for
fund?
lighting, right now with lighting, it's absolutely OpEx reduction, right? So savings. Lighting is the driver of energy savings and cost savings in the market. Of all the available technologies in what I think was increasingly considered the distributed infrastructure category, lighting is still the one most focused on the pure reduction of kilowatt hours and cost. I would say a emerging close second that we're seeing as a real trend is the level of lighting, particularly in spaces that relate to customer or employee comfort and experience. So brighter parking lots and brighter lobbies, as I mentioned, is a trend we're seeing in the hospitality space, where people approach a hotel at night and want to have a good experience, making sure it feels well lit and safe. Healthcare clinics, when people come and visit their elderly relatives, feeling like there's a good experience in a well lit, nicely designed space.
Now, when you have that criteria being increased lumens or light levels, I assume it's measured by foot candles. And then how do you perform, or how do you guarantee that? Do you say, for the next 5 years, we will promise that you're going to maintain 50 foot candles in this space? Is that the model?
Yeah, the contract actually specifies the number of foot candles, and there can be accommodations for degradation in a system. It depends on the situation of the lighting, but either that is actually a metered foot candle as part of the lighting control system, or a measured foot candle as part of a regular visit by the supplier to measure the status of the lighting output.
What is the return on capital your investors want to get?
It's been an interesting shift. It's one of the biggest shifts in the market we've seen. We started out with a cost of capital in the high single digits, and we're charging customers more than we thought was fair for a basic commodity product like lighting. But debt investors 5 years ago were very hesitant to put their capital behind these sort of assets. We have really managed to shift the market and bring debt investors to the platform that offer much, much lower rates. So now really in the mid single digits for an average customer to be able to show that underlying cost of capital. I think the second big shift is our product, a subscription, is no longer just about the underlying cost of capital, although we always disclose that in each contract and show the customer what they're paying for the time value of money. It's essentially our cost of holding the inventory, holding the equipment on our books for them. What we also show customers, again, is the reduction in the cost of the project we were able to achieve by purchasing in bulk from suppliers or negotiating on their behalf. So it's kind of that two-piece articulation of the cost of a project that we present.
So I don't necessarily buy your bulk. Be honest with you, Pierre. I don't necessarily buy your bulk purchase argument, but that's sort of a separate issue, because maybe a specialist lighting person like Greg or I will have better costs than you or whatever. Maybe we don't buy as much. I don't really buy that argument so much, but I'm interested. So you have investors that are willing to accept low single-digit returns for these type of investments?
We are, yeah. And I think, again, shifting it away from a traditional understanding of asset financing, can I recover these lights or this HVAC system?
You have a non-recoverable asset. It's not non-recoverable asset.
Absolutely, and we've started with that thesis, and I think that the success we've seen is in really showing investors, both through good models, good measurement, and track record, that this is really about cash flow. How likely is someone to pay you back for a core energy infrastructure? And they're very likely to pay, right? This is literally a payment related to their core building infrastructure, and it's honestly increasingly about vacancy, right? Whether someone will be in that building, because you can transfer a service contract to a new tenant. So the world of how debt investors think about this asset class is shifting fast.
Hang on. So are you billing the tenants or the owners?
Depends. So most of our customers right now are owner occupiers.
Yeah, I see only owners. I see only owners is going for this, but yeah, carry on. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Surprisingly, so I agree with you intellectually, in terms of how the decision making and exposure works, but we've actually been seeing more and more tenants come onto the platform and subscribe to energy systems. They often have an interest in fitting that subscription agreement underneath their lease term, so there's some constraints in what technology they can put in. But tenants are uptaking this, particularly if they have the right lease structure where they're paying the energy.
So so in Canada we have something called your lease rate, and then you have your T&M, which is your taxes, maintenance, and insurance. TMI, taxes, maintenance, and insurance. Would this land on a tenant's TMI?
I'm not familiar with the TMI phrasing. It may be a little bit different. I think is that similar to a common area management charge?
Yes, exactly. It would be similar to that, right? Okay,
sure.
So
it can. And unfortunately or fortunately, the answer to those questions is about as diverse as the number of contracts we have in a commercial real estate lease environment. It does land on the CAM. Sometimes it's an allowable pass-through for cost reduction to the tenant. Sometimes it's a direct contract with the tenant.
Are you an accountant? What's your background?
No, I was a consultant. I started my career at ICF International, a mid-sized consulting firm based here in DC, doing sustainability and climate work. And entrepreneurially, there I was able to launch a service offering with a couple of friends to go out and talk to customers, big corporates and munis, and actually help them figure out how to get energy systems in their building. And at some level, it came down to customers paying kids to help them not have to sort through 10 vendors for lighting, 10 vendors for HVAC. And what we saw was that the industry was fragmented, opaque, and at times frustrating for a customer to get access to what they thought should be a simple category. So we built Sparkfund really in response to that experience and to try to bring customers an easier way to get access to this category.
Now, if we took a project or an example, and this might take a little while to explain, but I want to take a real world example of this in lighting and see how it can relate to the business we do every day. So you don't have to name names, but just give us a real world example, start to finish, of how it works.
Sure. So there's a great set of case studies we have on our website, and obviously we can talk through a couple of specific customers. But I'll give an example of a lighting rollout we're doing with a group called Affinity Healthcare in the Southeast. 400 healthcare locations, really great operator of these clinics. And what we've been able to do for them is take their previous energy management and energy retrofit goal, which was to get 2 locations a year to increase their rollout of lighting. We've been able to move from a pilot in 2017 we did with 2 locations all the way to a rollout now of as many as 10 lighting projects and locations in a month. So we've essentially accelerated their ability to hit their energy retrofit and management goals by more than double instead of a year.
And that's
to a
because
month.
you're focusing them on the cash flow. You're saying, look, if you're saving this much a month and the payment is this much a month, why don't you just do everything right now?
Yeah, it comes down to sitting down with a customer, defining their outcomes, their goals for how energy systems impact their business, and then delivering every project and energy system or service that meets those objectives on a simple contract that actually allows them to, again, access the outcome, but not own the equipment. So it comes down to ownership. You are fundamentally asking a customer the question of, why do you own your air conditioning system? Why do you own your lighting? You need light and you need your customers and employees to be cool, but you don't need to take your scarce resources of time and capital and risk of ownership. You don't need to put those scarce resources into these ancillary systems. You can get access to the best systems without making that investment and focusing on your core business. That's the logic of subscription that drives our model.
Okay, so on this example, you're going through all the facilities, you're converting all the lighting over to LED. And is there criteria energy savings at this point, or is it anything about deliverable lights, lumens?
In that case, yeah, it's a mix of cost savings and lumens. So it's not necessarily every light. It can be a mix of indoor and outdoor lighting, but it is all about hitting those criteria, right? Whatever project hits those criteria for the customer, that's where we'll make a shift.
So they don't own any of the lights. You guys are just going to supply the lights and make sure that they do what you say they're going to do.
That's correct.
And who do you work with to get the lights?
So on our platform, we bring a group of vendors into the platform that can essentially then perform the audit, assessment, and installation. And that's where we hold the vendors to the sort of cost transparency and cost efficiency metrics that I was describing. And I actually agree with your point. Bulk purchasing is probably the wrong word. It's not that we're buying more lighting that makes us efficient. It's that we have customers anchored on outcomes, and we can tell vendors, if you bring us projects under these sort of terms at these sort of standard margins, you will have access to that customer and their outcomes. So it's really about
your pricing
giving
is
vendors
lower.
access.
I think if there is a discount, I think it comes from, if you came to me and said, look, I'm going to hand you 100 retirement homes to retrofit for me, but you have to give me this. Yeah, right. I can give you the lowest price. If I don't have to send a sales rep out there to do the work and go and count the lights or whatever it is that it is, and you're just like, listen, call again. Here's 100 lighting projects that are worth $1 million to you. Go do it and guarantee me this over 5 years. If there's a problem, I'm sending you back in there to fix it. Price me on based on that. That's where I can give you a lower price. I don't know about this bulk purchasing thing, but that's where I think it comes in.
No, and that's very much the conversation. And I really do think that you're right. It's not the bulk. It's that process of direct customer access and avoiding business development costs and being able to show that there's a customer with defined outcomes that will procure each of the projects that fit that criteria on
I don't like guys like you.
Exactly the conversation.
I don't like guys like you.
Well, now, how do the people like us, let's go there. How do the people like us, lighting distributors, or the people supplying the product, how do we get paid?
Yeah, same as you would in any cash sale. We are your cash customer. So we write you a check. We offer progress payments. We can do milestone-based payment, make sure you have your inventory carry costs covered. So in one way, yeah, you may not like the platform that's pushing the margins and increasing transparency in that sense, but we do try to be pretty friendly to the vendors on the platform, make sure they have the capital they need to do the job, do it well. And again, they're aligned for the first time with the customer because they're going to maintain and operate that equipment for 5, 7, 10 years. So they should do it right, install the best equipment.
Sure, but let's say you're buying the light fixtures from me and only buying the light fixtures from me, and they're $50,000.
Yeah, Greg, just chill out, okay, buddy?
I'm asking. So what happens? How do I get the $50,000? Do I get it when I give you the product, or do I have to wait 5 years until this contract is up to make sure what I'm giving you performs to what it needs to?
It's funny. I haven't seen you get this excited since the accounting code thing. It turns out it's the money that's doing. That makes sense.
Greg just woke up. Greg just woke up here.
Greg just woke up. Right. He was so focused on those accounting codes. So Greg, the answer to your question is, it is really truly similar to a normal cash sale, right? You go in and make the assessment. Tell me, look, this is this job is $50,000 under our agreed upon transparent pricing with these sort of standard margins. It's 50 grand. You go in and do the work. The customer says, thank you, these lights look great. And we write you a check for $50,000, labor, costs, taxes, right? It's all baked in just like a cash sale. And then you perform the work on, let's say it's a 5-year contract. That $50,000 comes to you up front. And then every month we give you an annuity passed through from the customer to continue to perform the maintenance and the any other guarantees of function, metering, whatever. We pay you each month. So that's a new annuity, a new revenue stream to your business that is not part of a normal cash sale. So you're getting nothing taken away from you on the cash sale side, and you're getting a new revenue stream.
But does that escalate? Does that annuity escalate as over time?
It doesn't, no. Although it is priced, I mean, it's priced based on your model. So we actually co-develop with a vendor a model for a labor rate card and the kind of way to think about a portfolio risk of lights breaking replacement.
Yeah, so I'd co-develop a model. I would escalate that. If I'm a bean counter accountant and I'm looking at and I know what I know about lighting, I would say nothing in the first year, whatever in the second year, more in the third, more in the fourth, more in the fifth. And then renew and replace or whatever. But that's an interesting model that you give an annuity to the service provider. That's interesting.
And for simplicity's sake, we actually take a risk model that looks very much like you just described. Nothing in the first, more in the fifth, right? And that kind of stair step. Mm-hmm. And then we smooth the curve for simplicity to the customer. So you actually get a higher net margin. You're getting money in the first year for work you aren't doing, and then less money probably than
who the hell is the customer? Who the hell is the customer? Is the customer your investors? Is the customer your the person with the lighting equipment? Is the customer the lighting supply guy? Who the hell is the customer here?
The customer is any multi-location owner and operator of buildings. Folks like, again, healthcare clinics, hospitality, logistics spaces, big corporates.
But I think the lighting service guy is also your customer.
Yeah, one of the reasons we call
or no, you're his customer. Sorry, you're his customer. Sorry, I'm trying to figure this all out from my perspective.
No, the reason we call it an operating system. So the metaphor of an operating system, think about a computer, right? An operating system makes it so you don't have to go in and access the hard drive individually or the data card or the processor, right? Your operating system seams together all the parts of a computer and makes it simple and deliver the function you want. We are the operating system that delivers subscription to the customer and gets them those business outcomes. And we help rationalize, engage with each of the components, a capital provider that gives us the debt, the vendor that does the work in the assessment, the utility that gives us the introduction to the customer and their brand because they're doing something new and exciting for their customer. So our operating system has different pieces on it, but we are the platform that seams it all together.
So when you're working with these utilities, are they providing you with information of who's using the most kilowatt hours and who's using the most gas and who's using the most water?
In some cases, and particularly on the unregulated side, they have national account relationships that have often been multi-decades, right? Decades long. So one of our core go-to-market strategies is to not knock on the door of a customer alone and say, hey, we're Sparkfund. You've never heard of us. We're excited to be here. We actually empower. Our operating system is white labeled to large incumbent energy providers like utilities They knock on their customer's door and they know them well. And they say, this is a new function, a new offer we can bring you inside your building. Own, operate, and guarantee the function of your energy systems. Just like we send you a kilowatt hour to the meter, we can give you low cost, resilient energy with guaranteed function inside the building. And that's an exciting thing from a customer who doesn't care that much about this category, knows that there's value, doesn't want to get screwed or spend the time to figure out.
I think the bigger the customer is, the more likely they are to like this model. Like the more real estate locations they have, the bigger the real estate is, the more complicated it is. Like I could tell you, I have a customer here that if I went to him and gave him a fixed rate saying, look, I'll take care of everything in this mall for X, they'd probably take that very, very seriously if the number was the right number. You know, if you could say, but the problem, I look at it and you take a big, so Toronto's a big city and most Americans don't understand that, but it's huge. In North American terms. In North American terms. It's not like Chinese terms, but in North American terms, it's big.
Right.
And some of these buildings are cavernous. I mean, they have hundreds of electrical panels. They have massive cooling towers and this sort of stuff. Are you able to tackle the really, really big real estate infrastructure? Or are you looking at more, like healthcare where they'll have they'll have a bunch of different old folks' homes around a state or something like that, and it's a little bit more manageable in terms of coming to the understanding. So if you took the first Canadian place in Toronto, it would take you probably 2 or 3 months just to figure out all the concourse and the towers and how everything worked. How would you, is there too big for this model, or what? Is there a too big of a property for this model, or those ones work better?
No, we've done retrofits on multi-million square foot buildings and 10,000 square foot buildings. And I think the answer to your question is not how would we tackle it, but are there vendors out there that can integrate onto our platform that can tackle it? I'm not sending Sparkfund employees to do that work and look at the cooling tower. I'm sending the best in class vendor in Toronto who knows that building, who has been in that market, who understands the context. And we are empowering them to not only make the assessment, but then bring the best systems. Because again, not only is the vendor aligned to give the customer good equipment because they're going to maintain it, the customer isn't paying up front for it, and they're getting a lower total cost of use than they would otherwise. And that service payment, by the way, particularly for lighting, that service payment is often 1 or 2 or 3% of the payment. We're not talking about the old days where an ESCO would try to sell you a huge service package of, hey, don't worry, we'll take care of it for only 30% of your payment, right? You know, this is a commodity view of this market. We are trying to lower the price both of the delivered goods through that cost efficiency and transparency, and significantly lower the cost of ongoing labor. We think this market fundamentally will become a large volume but commodified marketplace.
Yeah, we don't like you.
Yes, I agree. If we are successful, we will pull the margins out of small and medium regional providers, and that is a direct conflict between our model.
We've always said on this podcast that the lighting business is largely a regional business. It's muddy, it's regional, you know, and there are dominant players in each region, and no one seemed to be able to take over. I think that this model is also, there's a percentage of people who have the financial sophistication that are in charge of the real estate that will go for this. And then I think the larger portion is that they won't go for it. But that doesn't mean that whatever portion is small or big or whatever. It's that I think that there's a certain type of customer who's very interested in subscription, and there's a lot of people that are not interested in it at all.
Blockbuster Video said the same thing about Netflix. They said that people like driving to their video store, and that while some rich people in cities with computers will ultimately sign up for your service, no way will the world ever shift that quickly.
That metaphor doesn't work. That metaphor
in some ways.
No, it doesn't
work.
Not?
Why not?
I'll tell you why. Because let's take so the type of customer that I have or Greg has there's a segment of them that I think would qualify for this when I break them up and look at it. And then there's a segment of them that I don't think will ever qualify for it. Why do I say that? Well, so we have a marketing, I don't know what you would call it, where we actually finance the lighting upgrade, and the customer will pay for it out of the savings. Okay. So we prove to them every month. It's not exactly what you do, but it's similar in that.
Yeah, like an
we
ESA,
prove to,
something like that.
Yeah. So we prove to them every month they save, we take some percentage of this. And I've been selling this for 7 years in my market. And everybody loves it in the beginning, and then only the smartest customers do it. Did that just make sense what I said?
It does.
So
it does.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about the last 10 years of the market history. Yeah.
Yeah, so the smartest people go for that. And I've always noticed that the richest, smartest customers I have always do that. And then they verify the savings and they move on. But then there's this huge, vast bulk of customers that don't want to get involved in off-book financing, that don't want to take on a monthly payment, and they don't want to hear anything about it. And I think that percentage of the market, and you may call it wishful thinking, but I don't think the Blockbuster metaphor applies here. This is not Betamax versus VHS. I think what you're talking about here is a model that will work for, say, if you're the CFO of Jones Lang LaSalle, you're going to seriously look at something like this, right? Or Brookfield Office Properties or something. But if you're managing a factory, a 400,000 square foot factory in Markham, Ontario, I don't know if, and this is my experience, I don't know if those guys are really all that interested in a monthly payment. And a lot of people are suspicious of financial people in the first place, on top of everything, Pierre. So I'm not
Absolutely.
sure. Whenever you say you're going to charge someone,
I think,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, whenever you're going to charge somebody indefinitely for something, I think you have serious buzzers that go up on some people's heads saying no chance. And that's what we're talking about here. You're saying, like, let me reverse it for a second. If somebody came to me, and the first thing I'm going to say is, I'm not letting Pierre get his hooks into me, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's the first thing that's going to pop into my head, is that this banker guy, he's half Silicon Valley, he's half New York Stock Exchange finance guy, and he's going to get his hooks in me, forever, and I'm going to drag this Sparkfund around for the next 25 years until I retire, and they're going to be sending me these reports saying I'm saving, but all I'm doing is paying. Like, I think there's a lot of people that are going to continue to think like that, Pierre, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to change their minds.
That may be true. And there's a lot of skepticism and a lot of damage that's been done. So I, first of all, really resonate with, I think what you just said is absolutely the condition and state of the market today. And it absolutely reflects the best experience of the last 10 years. So whether it'll change or not, we can have that discussion. But I just wanted to start by saying I absolutely think you're right today, and based on that experience. I've had the same experience. What I will say is that every part of what we do is designed to build a product and an experience, a customer experience, that is so much better than that history of performance contracts, savings agreements, complex M&V, 100-page contracts, right? Our contract is 4 or 5 pages long. It's written in plain English. Sure. And more importantly, it's not just financing. So I'm not going to necessarily argue about the product today, but I think that over time, if we are successful in lowering the total cost of the project, flattening the amount of cost that it takes to get that transfer of risk through service, and making large energy utilities and other incumbents the ones that approach that customer, I think we can build a product that's good enough to disrupt the market as far as Netflix did in terms of making subscription to movies not just one way you get access to media, but the right way. It's a normative shift, a shift in how the right way to get access to this stuff is.
I don't
it will
think
not
this,
start.
I
don't
don't believe this is a paradigm shift. I think that there's the Sparkfund model, which I think is very strong. Don't get me the wrong way here, but I think there's a percentage of the market that will take it up, and there's a percentage of the market that will have, and I think the large, vast majority of the market will not be interested. I don't know about the square footage. So, for example, if I were to break it up by square footage, and the U.S. is different than Canada, I would say that maybe the square footage percentage of people that would be interested in this kind of model. So I think the larger the portfolio, the more interested someone might become in this. And the lower this, or the more locations, say, the more interested they would become. So I'm going to say that the lighting business will still be regional. even when you're done revolutionizing it, Pierre.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
One more little housekeeping thing. Greg, you want to jump in?
Yeah, just real quick. So right now, what do you say? What are the standard contract terms? Are there any standards? Is it 3-year, 5-year, whatever it works
Absolutely.
out to be financial? What is it?
Yeah, our average right now across all of the technologies, including heating, ventilation, which are longer, is 6 years. Lighting is 4 to 5, and none of them are beyond 10 currently. So it's not indefinite. It's a very clear contract, and if it doesn't work, minimum payment 0, and you can cancel at the end.
So what happens at the end of 5 years? And I own the lights if I use your service, or what happens to the lights?
Either we upgrade them to a new system for free, just like a cell phone. So free upgrade's the default. Next piece is cancel, walk away, and that's it. Or you can purchase the lights for whatever, if any, residual value.
Is there a need to always upgrade at the end of the time? You don't really know at this point, but will there be a need?
No,
but you continue
don't.
to pay the fee if you want to maintain it long term.
Yeah, again, at the end of the contract, you're released free and clear. If you do choose to upgrade, we would have to bring you a new system. And that would mean that there would be a technology that can create better value, more savings. Again, whatever your success criteria for energy systems are in 5 years and whatever the technology and lighting is that can deliver them. So that would be a conversation between the customer and the provider.
So you go ahead again, Greg. So I keep jumping in. Go ahead, Gregor.
As far as the lighting, I'm sticking to lighting because that's what we are. Do you guys align yourself with certain manufacturers? Or are you leaving that up to your vendor partners to determine that?
Yeah, very much to the vendor. And we are both vendor and technology agnostic. So we are a marketplace and a platform that gives customers the ability to subscribe with these standard terms, standard structures. We are not pushing any vendor or any OEM in any way.
Why do you think a lighting manufacturer will ever just take this model and implement it themselves?
I'm sure. I mean, the basic idea of providing guaranteed function or guaranteed savings is not particularly new. We're not sitting here saying we're the first people to ever think to own your lights for you and guarantee something, right? As you said, it's been around for quite a while. Again, I think it comes down to the difference between a good customer experience that's integrated with your incumbent energy provider, and again, terms that are totally customer first. Amazon wasn't the first company to think of putting stuff for sale online in a marketplace, but they did it with a obsessive focus on disrupting existing regional providers and regional book distributors, and they did it with a focus on margin and customer first experience that did fundamentally alter how people purchase. And we, again, not to be too grandiose, we think Sparkfund, particularly alongside our incumbent utility and energy partners, has a chance to become the Amazon or Netflix of the energy systems market.
So a little bit of housekeeping. That's a good way to end, but I'm going to tell you one thing. So we decided to change the name from Lumens as a service to Lux as a service because Lumens means nothing. Just the light output of a lamp, right? Lux is what your actually customers are paying for on the deliverable light side, right? So do you agree to change it with us, Pierre? Have we changed it permanently?
I think we have. I think it's a nice name.
All right, Lux
as a service it is.
Thanks for coming on the show, Pierre.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate the time and great conversation. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Keystone Technologies, baby. Go to Keystonetech.com, man. KeystoneTech.com. We're talking Keystone Cob Lights. Greggy, what's going on? Maddie, throw the website up for the YouTube watchers. What's going on with these new Cob Lights Keystone's got coming out?
So they have a huge selection, first of all. They have Type A, they have Type B, where you can use the ballast, you can bypass the ballast. They also have 360-degree illumination. They have some that are 180-degree and expand out. But the most exciting thing is that they've made their 360-degree cobs that used to be relatively large in size because they needed to be to get the light output out of them to match an HID smaller. So shorter in length, less diameter, and more powerful at a smaller package. So it's something that will make it a lot easier now to retrofit some of these HID fixtures that you have a hard time with fitting a larger cob in. A smaller cob will give it more applications that you can use it.
Wow. Keystone's definitely the retrofit kings, man. They can't be beat for all these different, where you want to take out a bulb and put it in an LED bulb. I think Keystone's got the best stuff. What do you think, Craig?
I would agree. They always have a good selection.
So go to
Ready to go.
KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com. And remember, every episode of the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast, which you can find at getagriponlighting.com, is brought to you by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Greg and I are members. Keystone's a member. We have lots of different educational programs you can take. So go to naild.org, that's nailed.org, for information on joining this association. For hanging out with Greg and Mike at the next convention. Come on, baby. Don't you want to hang out with us? Ha, 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 ha. And we'd like to thank Pierre LaFarge. Come on, Pierre. Great job. I love grappling with you there, talking about Lux as a service, Lumens as a service, lighting as a service. I think it's got to be Lux as a service. What do you say, Greg?
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Makes the most sense.
Yeah, come on, Pierre. Pierre, make it Lux as a service. And yeah, thanks for coming on the show, man. I think you're a smart guy. You got a great business model there. Definitely going to eat some of my cake down the road. Hopefully not too much. And yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Pierre. And that is episode 30 of the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast.